On March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 people took off from Kuala Lumpur, climbed to 35,000 feet, said a calm good night to air traffic control, and then did something no modern airliner is supposed to be able to do. It disappeared. Not crashed in a known location, not broken apart on radar. Disappeared. And 12 years later, after the most expensive search in the history of aviation, after government spent over $200 million, after 3 full-scale expeditions combed an area the size of the United Kingdom, we still don't know where it is. We don't know why it turned around. We don't know who was flying it in its final hours. And honestly, we may never know. I'm going to walk you through 7 specific reasons this plane vanished without a trace and was never truly explained. And some of these reasons are going to surprise you, because they're not the ones you've heard on the news. By the time we get to number 7, you're going to understand why the official story quietly falls apart the moment you look at it closely. Before we dive in, do me a favor. While you're watching, think about which of these 7 reasons feels the most suspicious to you. Drop the number in the comments when we get there. I actually read them, and I'm curious which one sticks with you the most. Let's get into it. The first reason MH370 vanished is something almost nobody talks about. It's called the handoff blind spot. When a commercial airliner travels between countries, it gets passed from one air traffic control center to another, kind of like a relay race. Malaysia hands the plane off to Vietnam. Vietnam hands it to China. Simple. But here's what they don't tell you. There's a small window of time, usually just a few minutes, where nobody is really watching. Malaysia has already said goodbye. Vietnam hasn't said hello yet. And right in the middle of that handoff, at a waypoint called Igari over the South China Sea, MH370's transponder went dark. Whoever was flying that plane didn't just pick a random moment. They picked the exact moment the sky stopped looking. It took Vietnamese controllers 17 full minutes to even notice the plane wasn't there. 17 minutes. That's how long it took before anyone on Earth realized a 350-ton airliner had gone missing. And in aviation, 17 minutes is an eternity. A Boeing 777 moving at cruising speed can cover over 200 miles in that window. By the time anyone looked up, the plane was already somewhere completely different, doing something completely unexpected. The second reason connects directly to the first, and it's where the story stops feeling like an accident. When the transponder was disabled on MH370, it wasn't a power surge, it wasn't a short circuit, it wasn't a random failure. Investigators were able to prove this by studying the status messages the transponder sent in its final moments. See, when a transponder loses power suddenly, the signal just dies. Flatline. Instant silence. But MH370's transponder didn't do that. It sent a clear sequence of degrading messages, almost like someone slowly turning a dial. That kind of shutdown only happens one way. Somebody inside the cockpit reached up and physically switched it off. And it gets worse. The plane also had a second communication system called ACARS, which is buried deep in the belly of the aircraft. It's not a switch on the dashboard. To disable it, you'd need to pull a specific circuit breaker hidden in a crawl space beneath the cockpit floor. A veteran Air France pilot we know of admits he doesn't even know how to do it. None of his colleagues do either. Whoever disabled these systems wasn't guessing. They knew exactly which breaker to pull and where to find it. That's not a hijacker with a box cutter. That's somebody with detailed, expert-level knowledge of the aircraft. Let that sink in. The third reason the plane was never found is almost poetic, in a dark way. After MH370 turned around, it didn't just fly randomly. It traced a path along international borders. It skimmed the line between Malaysia and Thailand. Then it hugged the edge between Indonesia and the Malacca Strait. Each country's radar saw a blip. Each country assumed the blip belonged to the other country, so nobody scrambled fighter jets. Nobody sent an interceptor. Nobody picked up the phone. This is the part that keeps aviation experts up at night. Imagine a criminal walking down a street that happens to sit on the exact line between 2 police jurisdictions. Both departments can see him. Neither one is legally required to do anything. That's what MH370 did for over an hour. It became a ghost by flying through the cracks of international responsibility. And here's the thing that makes it feel deliberate. Whoever was at the controls knew those cracks existed. They weren't just flying a plane, they were flying the map. Before I get to number 4, I want to ask you something. If a plane can hide this well on purpose, what does that mean for modern aviation? Is this still possible today? Because this is one of the questions that haunts pilots and investigators to this day, and I'd love to hear what you think in the comments. The 4th reason is pure mathematics, and it's maybe the most frustrating one of all. After the plane disappeared from every radar on Earth, it kept doing something weird. Every hour, its satellite system automatically pinged a communication satellite called Inmarsat. These pings didn't contain location data. They didn't say where the plane was or how fast it was going. They were basically just a signal saying, "Hello, I'm still here." But some very clever engineers realized they could measure the tiny delay in those pings and calculate how far the plane was from the satellite at that moment. That gave them a circle, not a dot, a circle. A giant invisible ring in the sky that could be anywhere on its circumference. 7 of these pings were recorded before the plane went silent for good. 7 rings. And when they overlapped them, it narrowed down to a long, curved arc in the southern Indian Ocean. Investigators called it the 7th arc. Here's the catch. That arc is thousands of miles long. Imagine being told your missing keys are somewhere along the entire east coast of the United States. That's the level of precision we're working with. The plane wasn't found because, in a very real sense, we never actually knew where it was. We just knew where it probably wasn't. The 5th reason is the ocean itself. And this is where people underestimate just how hostile the southern Indian Ocean really is. This isn't like searching the Mediterranean or even the Atlantic. This is one of the most remote, violent, and poorly mapped stretches of water on the entire planet. The depths reach over 23,000 feet in places. For comparison, the Titanic sits at about 12,500 feet. So we're talking about water nearly twice as deep. The pressure down there is so intense, it can crush steel submarines. The underwater terrain isn't a flat sandy floor either. It's a nightmare of jagged mountain ranges, volcanic formations, and trench walls that drop straight down like cliffs. The search robots they used, called autonomous underwater vehicles, have to fly about 300 feet above the seafloor to stay safe. If the plane is wedged into a canyon, tucked behind a ridge, or sitting in the shadow of an underwater mountain, those machines would fly right past it and never see a thing. On top of that, the weather window for searching is only about 3 to 6 months per year. Wave heights regularly hit 16 feet. Wind speeds routinely exceed 25 knots. The latest search in early 2026 had to be paused because conditions got too dangerous. Think about that. With all our modern technology, with ships designed specifically for this kind of work, the ocean still won. It's not that we can't find MH370, it's that the ocean is actively hiding it. The 6th reason is the one that quietly drives investigators crazy. And it's this. Every single piece of evidence we have contradicts every other piece of evidence. Let me explain. We have the satellite pings, which point to one zone. We have ocean drift models based on the debris that washed up in Africa and Madagascar, which point to a slightly different zone. We have a relatively new technique called weak signal propagation tracking, which uses disturbances in amateur radio waves to reconstruct flight paths. That method points to a 3rd zone, completely different from the first 2. We have eyewitness accounts. There are villagers on a small island in the Maldives who swear they saw a low-flying jet with red and blue stripes passing overhead on the morning of March 8, 2014. A British sailor crossing the Indian Ocean reported seeing an aircraft trailing black smoke and orange flames. Fishermen in that region found a strange metallic sphere that looked remarkably like a fire extinguisher used in Boeing 777s. None of these sightings match the official search area. Not one. And then there's the matter of the emergency beacons. A Boeing 777 has 4 separate emergency locator transmitters that are specifically designed to survive a water impact and automatically broadcast a distress signal. None of them activated. Not one single beacon out of 4. Either the crash was so catastrophic that all 4 were instantly destroyed, which is incredibly unlikely, or something happened to MH370 that those beacons were never designed to handle. When every piece of evidence is screaming a different location, You don't have a search problem. You have a reality problem. You have a case where the facts themselves refuse to agree. Now we get to the seventh and final reason, and this is the one that makes everything else feel different. It's not one clue. It's a collection of quiet facts that nobody in authority seems to want to discuss out loud. Start with the captain. Zahari Ahmad Shah had over 18,000 hours of flight experience. He was respected, married, a father of 3. By every official account, he had no motive, no mental health issues, no financial stress. But in his home, police found a flight simulator that he had built himself. And on the hard drive of that simulator, investigators recovered a deleted flight path. It showed a route from Kuala Lumpur, up through the Malacca Strait, turning south into the southern Indian Ocean, and ending at a point where the plane would have run out of fuel. This route was flown on his simulator just weeks before MH370 disappeared. Malaysian authorities initially denied it. Then leaked documents forced them to admit it existed. Their official response was that the captain had thousands of flight paths on his simulator, and we shouldn't read too much into one. But there aren't many innocent reasons to practice flying a commercial jet into the emptiest part of the ocean. Then there's the passenger list. 20 of the people on board MH370 worked for an American semiconductor company called Freescale. These weren't vacationers. They were engineers working on cutting-edge microchip technology with potential military applications. Was that a coincidence? Probably. But it's the kind of coincidence that makes people ask uncomfortable questions. And then there's Diego Garcia. It's a tiny atoll in the middle of the Indian Ocean that happens to house one of the most secretive American military bases in the world. The alleged flight path the plane took after it disappeared from civilian radar pointed suspiciously in that direction. Villagers in the nearby Maldives claim they saw a huge, low-flying jet that morning. A strange piece of debris resembling a Boeing fire extinguisher washed up on a nearby beach. None of this was ever seriously investigated in public. And when journalists asked the American government to comment on any of it, the silence was deafening. No press conference, no statement, no clarification, just nothing. For an event involving 239 missing human beings, that silence is louder than any theory. The official Malaysian report released in 2018 is nearly 500 pages long. You would think, after 4 years of investigation, the conclusion would be definitive. But here's what it actually says. The report cannot determine what caused MH370 to vanish. It cannot determine who was flying the plane. It cannot determine where it crashed. It cannot even conclusively say whether the plane was hijacked or suffered some kind of failure. 500 pages of investigation. 0 answers. In 2026, Ocean Infinity, the robotics company tasked with the latest search, pulled their ships out of the southern Indian Ocean after just 28 days of work. They had scanned about 7,500 square kilometers of seafloor. They found nothing. The Malaysian government said the search may resume, but nobody knows when. And even if it does, every serious expert agrees on one thing. We may be searching the wrong part of the ocean entirely. So, let me ask you a real question before we wrap this up. Which of the 7 reasons do you think is the biggest reason MH370 was never explained? Is it the handoff blind spot that lets someone slip through the sky undetected? Is it the surgical disabling of the transponder that screams inside job? Is it the ocean itself, hiding one of the largest machines ever built by humans? Or is it the uncomfortable silence from the people who should have the most answers? Drop your pick in the comments. I want to see where people land on this. Here's what I keep coming back to. Every mystery in history eventually gets solved. Amelia Earhart still has researchers looking. The Titanic was found. Even the Mary Celeste has plausible explanations. But MH370 is different. It wasn't a plane that got lost. It was a plane that was made to disappear. Every system that could track it was disabled in the exact right order, at the exact right moment, along the exact right flight path to exploit every blind spot in global aviation. Whatever happened on that plane, it wasn't an accident. And whoever caused it, they knew exactly what they were doing. 12 years later, 239 families are still waiting for answers. 3 governments have tried and failed to find the wreckage. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent. The most advanced ocean scanning technology on Earth has been deployed. And still, the ocean keeps its secret. Maybe one day we'll find it. Maybe we won't. But the next time someone tells you we live in a world where everything is watched, everything is tracked, and nothing can truly be hidden anymore, remember MH370C. Remember that a 350-ton machine carrying 239 human beings flew off the map in plain sight, and the smartest people on the planet still can't tell you where it went. If this video gave you a new way of looking at one of the greatest mysteries of our time, I would genuinely appreciate it if you hit that like button. It honestly helps this channel more than you know. And if you want more stories about machines the world forgot, about vanished ships, lost aircraft, abandoned technology, and the mysteries time tried to bury, make sure you subscribe to Forgotten Machines. I've got a lot more coming, and I don't want you to miss what's next. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. I'll see you in the next one.